She walked in looking like any other small-town woman, but what happened next would expose just how rotten some people can be when they think no one's watching. The man who laughed at her. He was about to be humbled in the most spectacular way imaginable. It was just after 9 a.m. when Lena Hartley stepped into Crescent City Elite Motors, a high-end dealership tucked into the wealthiest corner of San Diego. Dressed in faded jeans, a worn flannel shirt, and simple canvas sneakers, Lena Hartley looked like the type of customer their sales team catered to. She had her eyes set on something special: a deep crimson 2025 Valiant Imperium coupe, parked front and center behind a velvet rope barrier. It was sleek, elegant, and carried a price tag of $298,000. As Lena quietly approached, taking in the car's curved lines and polished chrome, the lead salesman Travis Milton spotted her from across the glass-walled showroom. His lip curled into a smirk. "Ma'am," he called out, striding over with mock courtesy, "this section is for serious buyers only. The cars here, well, they're not exactly for window shopping." Lena blinked, surprised. "I was actually hoping to ask about that Valiant Imperium. It's for my brother, his 45th birthday's coming up." Travis gave her a once-over, his eyes lingering on her scuffed shoes, especially the color of her skin. "You sure you're in the right place?" he asked, gesturing toward the exit. "Most of our clients roll in with appointments and in vehicles worth more than your monthly rent." Behind him, two other employees chuckled quietly, watching the scene unfold with obvious amusement. Other customers nearby pretended not to stare but couldn't hide their curious glances. Lena felt the heat rise in her face, but she didn't respond. Instead, she simply turned and walked out without a word, her shoulders straight and her pace steady. But what no one at Crescent City Elite Motors knew, was who Lena really was, or who she was married to. And the next morning, they were going to find out in a way they'd never forget. The next day's sun hadn't fully climbed over the skyline when Travis Milton arrived at work, his usual self-important swagger in full effect. He wore his signature navy suit and blood-red tie, a look he believed gave him the air of a man in control. He barely remembered the woman from yesterday, just another wannabe walking in like she belonged. In his mind, people like that didn't warrant more than a scoff and a brochure. Back in the dealership's gleaming showroom, the 2025 Valiant Imperium coupe shimmered beneath spotlights. Only 20 units had been manufactured nationwide, and this particular one had custom features: heated diamond-stitched leather seats, a twin-turbo V12, and a fully digital cockpit tailored for elite buyers. Lena Hartley had returned. She stepped through the same glass doors, dressed much the same as the day before: worn jeans, a simple gray t-shirt, and a light windbreaker. Her dark hair was tied back, her face calm, though her eyes carried something different this time: resolve. This time, the first to greet her wasn't Travis, but a junior salesperson named Eli Ramirez. Barely in his 20s, Eli still had the spark most of the older team had long buried beneath commissions and quotas. "Good morning, ma'am," Eli said with a welcoming smile. "Is there a specific model you're looking for?" Lena gave a warm smile back. "That red Imperium coupe. Still here?" Eli nodded. "Absolutely. Want to take a closer look?" Before Lena could answer, a familiar voice cut in like a blade. "I'll handle this, Eli," Travis said, stepping in smoothly. "Thanks, kid." Travis turned to Lena with a strained grin. "Back again, huh? Still dreaming?" "I'm interested in learning more about the Imperium," Lena replied evenly, her voice polite but unwavering. Travis crossed his arms. "Look, I'll save us both time. That vehicle's by private appointment only, and we typically only show it to clients we've pre-qualified," he said, emphasizing the word like it had weight. "Maybe you'd be better off browsing our certified pre-owned section. It's over in the annex, about 2 blocks east." Behind him, two other salesmen exchanged amused glances. One of them chuckled quietly, shaking his head. Lena's eyes flicked to the car, then back to Travis. "I'm still asking about that one." Travis let out a short, sharp laugh. Ma'am, you'd need to put down a $50,000 deposit just to hold that vehicle for 48 hours. We're not a charity, and this isn't a fantasy garage tour. I've got real clients arriving in an hour. Lena didn't flinch. That car is for my brother. He just got through open-heart surgery. It's not about fantasy. Travis's smile disappeared completely. Look, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing here, but we don't have time for tire kickers. This is a place for serious money and serious buyers. Do yourself a favor and stop embarrassing yourself. His words landed like darts in a silent room. Several customers glanced over, unsure whether to look away or keep watching. Lena stood perfectly still, absorbing each word, not because they were new, but because they weren't. She'd seen this pattern before. Felt it. Lived it. And she wasn't going to argue. Not here. Not with him. But her silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. She simply nodded once and turned to leave. As she walked out the door, she could hear Travis muttering under his breath, loud enough to be heard, "Some people just don't know when they're out of their league." Lena stepped into the sunlight, took out her phone, and tapped in a number she knew by heart. A quiet smile touched her lips as it rang. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. Inside the pristine glass-walled showroom, the atmosphere turned heavy. Conversations ceased. Every eye was on the confrontation unfolding near the crimson Valiant Imperium coupe. The room, once full of polished confidence and high-end charm, now hung in a stunned, tense silence. "You're wasting my time," Travis Milton said, stepping in closer. His voice dropped, not in kindness but in sharpened cruelty. "And frankly, you're embarrassing yourself." Lena Hartley didn't flinch. But her hands, now clenched at her sides, betrayed the storm rising inside her. "I suggest you come back when you're ready for a serious conversation, dressed appropriately, and maybe with a bank statement to match," Travis continued, his words coated in smug superiority. "This dealership isn't a fantasy playground. These vehicles," he gestured around theatrically, "are for a certain class of people." A few soft gasps broke through the silence. Some customers looked away, others leaned in with shameful fascination. But no one intervened. Lena stood there calm, composed, but burning. Not for herself. No, she'd weathered storms like this before. The sting came from knowing how many others had been quietly turned away, not with words, but with looks, like the one she was getting now. And just then, a new voice pierced the silence. "Is there a problem here?" Heads turned. From the glass office at the back, Harold Stanton, owner of Crescent City Elite Motors, emerged tall, silver-haired, and carrying the weight of the dealership's reputation on his shoulders. Travis straightened immediately, adjusting his tie. "No issue at all, sir. Just explaining to the lady here that these vehicles are by appointment only." Harold's cold eyes slid toward Lena. "Your name, miss?" "Lena Hartley," she replied, her voice sharp, unwavering. "Perhaps there was a misunderstanding," Harold said with corporate ease. "There was no misunderstanding," Lena replied flatly. "Your manager was quite clear about who you believe belongs here." Travis jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "If you're truly interested, which I highly doubt, we can schedule something," he said, his tone dripping with doubt. "But next time, maybe, come dressed for the part. These cars," he repeated, louder now, "aren't for everyone." The words landed like a slap. And Lena didn't blink. Her eyes scanned the room, the passive bystanders, the nervous glances, the silent approval of a system built on assumptions. "I see," she said simply. Then, she turned and walked out. As the glass doors swung shut behind her, Travis muttered loud enough for anyone to hear, "Some people just don't know their place." But Lena did. She knew exactly who she was and, more importantly, who was standing behind her. She stepped into the warm California morning, pulled out her phone, and tapped a number she had never once forgotten. It rang once. "Hey," she said softly, calm but firm. "I need you tomorrow." On the other end of the line, a low, steady voice answered. "I'll be there." And when the Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled up to that dealership the next morning, every single assumption inside Crescent City Elite Motors was about to be destroyed. The sun glared off the windshields in the dealership's front lot as Lena Hartley walked away, shoulders steady, pace controlled, fury contained. But inside? She wasn't just walking away from an insult. She was walking toward a reckoning. Outside, she paused just beyond the view of the showroom's tall glass panels. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer effort it took to not let that man see her crack. She raised her phone again. This time, her grip was firm. The call connected. "Hey, babe," the voice on the other end greeted warmly. "Everything all right?" She exhaled slowly. "I need you to come with the Phantom. Tomorrow morning. 10 sharp." There was a pause. Then, quiet steel in his voice, "Tell me what happened." Lena recounted every detail. From the condescending smirk to the suggestion she browse the used lot. From the smothered laughter of the other salesman to the way Travis Milton spoke as if her presence alone was offensive. She didn't embellish. She didn't need to. Her husband Gavin Hartley had heard enough. Back at the Hartley residence, a gated estate hidden on the cliffs overlooking La Jolla Cove, Gavin set down the phone and stared out the glass wall of his study. Founder of Hartley Energy Group, a pioneer in national infrastructure and clean energy tech, Gavin was known in the business world for his cool composure and his unforgiving memory. Few knew how vast his reach truly was. Even fewer had the misfortune of underestimating his wife. And tomorrow, someone would learn exactly what that mistake cost. The next morning, 9:57 a.m. The hum of conversation filled Crescent City Elite Motors. Espresso machines hissed, heels clicked on tile, and polished voices discussed luxury specs and financing packages. Travis Milton leaned casually against the front desk, laughing with a client about dreamers who wandered in just to snap pictures. Then it happened. A low, guttural growl almost like thunder rolled through the lot. Heads turned. A Rolls-Royce Phantom extended, dipped in obsidian black with a chrome finish so reflective it practically gleamed like liquid metal, glided through the front entrance. Its custom rims, tinted bulletproof windows, and midnight detailing told a different story than the average wealthy buyer. This wasn't a customer. This was a statement. The car came to a smooth stop directly in front of the main doors. Before anyone could react, a uniformed chauffeur exited with practiced grace. In a single fluid motion, he opened the rear passenger door. And out stepped Gavin Hartley. Tailored navy suit. Italian leather shoes. Steel gray eyes. Presence like a hurricane. The man didn't just walk, he arrived. Travis blinked twice, confused. Then recognition began to dawn. The Gavin Hartley? The billionaire? The man whose name was whispered in high-level energy contracts and Capitol Hill corridors? Travis stood frozen, unsure if he should run or kneel. Gavin approached the entrance calmly, eyes surveying the showroom like a man inspecting property he already owned. Customers and employees instinctively stepped aside. Travis forced a smile, recovering just enough to intercept him. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Crescent City Elite Motors. I'm Travis, sales manager here. Is there anything I can assist you with personally?" Gavin stopped, offered a handshake, but his grip was firm, expression unreadable. "I'm here about the Valiant Imperium coupe." Travis lit up. "Excellent choice. It's right this way, sir. One of our rarest models." But Gavin's tone cut through like a blade. "My wife came here yesterday, in jeans and a flannel shirt." Travis froze. Gavin's gaze didn't flinch. "You humiliated her." laughed at her, directed her to the used lot like she was trash. Travis stammered, a sheen of sweat forming instantly. Sir, I wasn't aware. You were aware, Gavin said, voice like granite. You looked her in the face and made a judgment. Not just wrong. Disgusting. The dealership had gone dead silent. Even Harold Stanton, the owner, had emerged from his office, eyes wide. Gavin turned his attention to him now. Your employee treated my wife like she didn't belong. She didn't walk in here to prove anything. She walked in here to buy a gift for her brother's recovery from heart surgery. Harold paled. Mr. Hartley, I can assure you, this isn't how we conduct business. Gavin raised a hand. No speeches. No damage control. He took a breath. I was planning to replace the entire executive fleet for Hartley Energy. 8 vehicles. 3 of them were going to be Imperiums. I also intended to upgrade Lena's car and purchase one for my CTO. A collective gasp rippled across the room. That would have been a multi-million-dollar transaction, one that could carry a dealership through an entire quarter. But now, Gavin continued, voice calm but final, I'm thinking we may take our business somewhere, less judgmental. He turned, ready to leave. Unless, he paused, you're willing to correct your mistake in a meaningful way. The next move would determine whether Crescent City Elite Motors survived this moment or collapsed beneath the weight of its own prejudice. The air in Crescent City Elite Motors was thick with tension. No one moved. No one dared speak. Even the ambient jazz playing through the ceiling speakers felt suddenly too loud, too cheerful for a moment so saturated in shame. Gavin Hartley stood at the center of it all, unshaken, immovable, while Travis Milton stood pale and silent, watching his professional life dangle by a thread. But Gavin hadn't come here for vengeance. He'd come for something far more dangerous to people like Travis, a lesson. After a long pause, Gavin turned back toward Harold Stanton, the dealership's owner, and addressed him directly. There's a way forward, he said, measured and calm, but it will require more than handshakes, apologies, or throwing your sales manager under the bus. Harold blinked, uncertain whether to feel hopeful or terrified. We're listening. Gavin nodded once. My wife runs the Hartley Foundation for Inclusive Futures. We fund adaptive programs for children with disabilities, sports, tech access, education, real equity. Next month, we're hosting a gala in support of a new facility in Chula Vista. It's a full-circle initiative, built on dignity and empowerment. Harold nodded, wary. That sounds admirable. Gavin continued, your dealership will sponsor the entire event. Not just your name on a banner, real support. Volunteers. Staff on site. Vehicles donated for auction. A commitment to learning what actual value looks like in a human being. Travis's mouth went dry. Then came the blow. And Travis? Gavin said, eyes locking onto him. You'll be working the event. Not as a guest. Not in a suit. You'll help set up chairs. Serve refreshments. Carry equipment. You'll see the strength in people you would have overlooked in a showroom. Travis took a shaky breath. Sir, You don't need to say anything, Gavin cut in. What matters is what you do next. Humility isn't something you claim. It's something you earn. He turned slightly, scanning the stunned crowd. Then his eyes found Eli Ramirez, the young salesman who had originally greeted Lena respectfully. You Eli, right? Gavin called out. Eli nodded, startled. Why yes, sir. I want you to handle the paperwork for the Imperium coupe. The one my wife came in to buy. She'll still be gifting it to her brother. But I want the deal in your name. Eli's eyes widened. I'm honored, Mr. Hartley. Truly. You earned it, Gavin said simply. By showing basic human decency. Don't lose it. Not in this place. Harold's face was flushed. The room had seen more reality in 5 minutes than most of them had experienced in years. And one last thing, Gavin added, voice dropping just slightly in tone, quiet, but thunderous. Your staff needs training. Real training. On implicit bias. On how to recognize the rotten roots before they poison the whole tree. I'll be sending a list of consultants. If you don't implement it within 60 days, I'll ensure every major publication in California hears this story straight from Lena and me. He smiled. Not cruelly. But like a man who knew the weight he carried. Then he extended a hand. Your move. Harold Stanton looked at that hand like it might detonate. But after a brief moment of paralyzed hesitation, he took it. We'll do it, Harold said. All of it. The room exhaled, as if the building itself had been holding its breath. But the humiliation wasn't over. Because as Gavin turned toward the Imperium coupe to inspect the final details with Eli, Travis stood in the middle of the showroom silent, burning, and completely irrelevant. For once in his career, he had nothing left to say. The late afternoon sunlight poured through the arched windows of the Hartley estate, casting soft gold across the mahogany floors. Inside Gavin's office, everything was still. The confrontation was over. The deal was done. But Gavin knew better than to assume the dust had settled. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about understanding what had been lost and maybe, what could still be restored. He heard the gentle click of the door. Lena stepped in, now dressed in a soft cream blouse and dark slacks, her hair tucked back in a loose bun. Her presence was calm, but the air around her felt charged. He looked up and gave her a small smile. It's done. Lena nodded. She walked slowly to the wide leather chair across from him and sat, folding her hands in her lap. There was a long pause between them, comfortable, but heavy. I never wanted it to go public, she said finally, voice low. I know, Gavin replied. I didn't care that he dismissed me, she added. Not really. I've seen worse. I've felt worse. But, something about the way he looked through me like I was invisible, it wasn't just rude. It was dangerous. Her voice trembled slightly at the last word. Gavin leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You don't have to justify what you felt. I'm not, Lena said quietly. I'm just thinking about all the people who walk into places like that looking for a job, alone, a second chance, and get treated the same way. Only they don't have a husband with a private Phantom or a $10 billion company behind them. Her eyes met his. They leave those places broken. Questioning their worth. Wondering if they deserve that kind of treatment. And that's what eats at me. Gavin exhaled slowly. You've always seen what most people ignore. She smiled faintly. That's what makes us dangerous. He laughed softly, leaning back in his chair. You sure you didn't want to be there to see his face? Lena chuckled. Tempting. But this wasn't about my satisfaction. It was about making sure the next person who walks through that door isn't judged by their jeans or their skin tone or how expensive their watch is. She paused. I didn't want him to be destroyed. I just wanted him to wake up. Gavin stood, walked over to her, and reached out his hand. She took it, rising slowly. Then you did more than most people ever manage, he said. You turned a personal insult into a public revelation. They stood together in the fading light, husband and wife, quiet warriors who didn't need power to prove their worth. They just needed each other and the courage to never let silence win. The Grand Horizon Hotel in Chula Vista shimmered under strings of soft lights and cascading floral arrangements. Tonight, its grand ballroom wasn't filled with luxury car enthusiasts or executives sipping aged scotch. It was filled with laughter, wheelchairs, prosthetics, therapy dogs, and joy. The Hartley Foundation Gala for Inclusive Futures had officially begun. Guests wore gowns and tuxedos, but the real stars of the night were the children. Some zipped through the room on crutches, others maneuvered wheelchairs with practiced grace. A few were nervous, clutching tightly to their parents. And all of them, everyone, were seen, celebrated, and welcomed. Just outside the ballroom, Travis Milton adjusted the stiff white polo shirt of the event staff uniform. It felt foreign, like he was wearing someone else's identity. No cufflinks. No Rolex. No designer tie to hide behind. Only a name badge, a clipboard, and the full weight of shame on his shoulders. He hadn't wanted to be here. But Gavin's terms had been crystal clear: you want a future in this industry? You start by learning from the people you once dismissed. Now here he was, directing guests to the check-in table, setting up folding chairs for the guest speakers, and refilling water pitchers like a hotel intern. And yet, something strange began to happen. No one judged him. No one mocked him. No one looked through him. Instead, a young boy in a wheelchair with wild curly hair and an infectious smile rolled up beside him, offering a juice box. "You look thirsty, mister," the kid said with a grin. Travis blinked. "Thanks, what's your name?" "Zayden," the boy replied proudly. "I'm in the wheelchair basketball league. My team's undefeated." Travis smiled, awkward at first, but genuine. "That right? You gonna teach me how to shoot sometime?" Zayden laughed. "Only if you promise not to suck too bad." Travis chuckled, caught off guard by the honesty. "Deal." As the night went on, Travis found himself carrying sensory equipment for one of the therapy booths, helping a little girl with Down syndrome find her parents, and explaining microphone settings to a shy teen who was giving a speech about surviving spinal surgery. And for the first time in years, he wasn't performing. He was showing up. The way Lena had. The way Eli had. The way no one had taught him to, but he was starting to learn on his own. Just as he was restocking napkins near the dessert table, a familiar voice behind him made him freeze. "You're doing better than I expected." Lena Hartley stood there, elegant in a dark blue gown with minimalist pearls and quiet poise. No entourage. No drama. Just grace. Travis straightened instantly, his heart pounding. "Mrs. Hartley," he began, but she raised her hand gently. "No titles. Just Lena." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Lena, I've already sent in my formal apology. But it doesn't feel like enough." "It's not," she said softly. "But this," she gestured to the room, "the kids, the joy, this is a start." Travis's eyes dropped to the floor. "I didn't just misjudge you. I misjudged everyone." Lena nodded slowly. "That showroom wasn't your failure. Not fully. It was a system failing through you. You were just the loudest voice that day." Then she looked him in the eye. "The question is, what kind of voice will you be now?" And for once, Travis Milton, the man who once thought he knew everything about worth, status, and sales, had no answer. Only resolve. The night was winding down. The ballroom of the Grand Horizon Hotel was quieter now, still warm with laughter, but softer, gentler. Children dozed in their parents' arms. Volunteers gathered in small clusters, some wiping down tables, others collecting decorations for storage. Travis Milton stood near the entrance, arms gently folded, watching Zayden spin his wheelchair in circles and challenge another kid to a one-handed race. He smiled quietly. For the first time in years, the silence around him wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. "Enjoying yourself?" a familiar voice asked behind him. Travis turned, and there he was. Gavin Hartley. Still impeccable in a three-piece suit, but without the storm of judgment from that morning at the dealership. Instead, there was something else in his eyes now: evaluation. "Yes, sir," Travis said, standing upright out of instinct. Gavin looked him over, not his clothes this time, not his posture but the energy around him. "Zayden seems to like you," Gavin said, nodding toward the boy. Travis gave a modest chuckle. "He said I'm the worst shot he's ever seen." Gavin raised an eyebrow. "He's honest. Don't take it personally." "I don't," Travis said, then added after a pause, "Not anymore." There was silence between them for a moment. Not tense, just full. "I've been told," Gavin continued, "you've been taking this seriously. Not just tonight. But since that morning. Showing up. Learning. Working with Eli. Participating in team changes at the dealership." Travis looked down, almost embarrassed. "Trying to." Gavin stepped closer, voice lower, now private. "I don't hand out second chances because people beg for them, Travis. I offer them when people earn them." Travis nodded slowly. "I'm not looking for sympathy, Mr. Hartley," he said. "I just want to do right. I want to be the kind of man your wife thought I never could be." Gavin studied him for a beat. Then, quietly, "That corporate fleet I mentioned?" Travis held his breath. "We're still in the market." The words landed like thunder in Travis's chest. His mouth parted slightly. "Sir, I've spoken to Eli," Gavin cut in. "He said you've been mentoring him. That you've helped restructure how customers are welcomed, trained new hires on equity practices. That you even suggested a community outreach program for underrepresented youth who might not otherwise step foot into a showroom like yours." Travis's voice caught. "I didn't think he noticed." "Good people always notice," Gavin said. He extended a hand. "I want you to handle the transaction. From start to finish. If you're ready." Travis hesitated, but only for a second. Then, with a sense of humility that had taken a lifetime to find, he took Gavin's hand in a firm, grateful shake. "I'm ready." Across the room, Lena Hartley watched them with a soft, knowing smile. Not every story ends in punishment. Some end in growth. And sometimes, the people who fall the hardest are the ones who rise the most changed. 1 month later. The Crescent City Elite Motors dealership had changed. Gone were the hushed whispers behind showroom glass. Gone were the subtle smirks, the quiet dismissals, the unspoken caste system of luxury. Now, the staff went through bias training every month. The showroom welcomed all guests, young, old, wealthy, modest, each one greeted with equal dignity. And walking between those polished floors, in a neatly pressed charcoal suit, clipboard in hand, was Travis Milton, different in more ways than one. He didn't talk over people anymore. He listened. He didn't qualify customers by shoes or watches. He qualified them by intent, just like Eli had once done for Lena. Speaking of Eli, he was now assistant sales manager. Travis had pushed for it himself. And as for the fleet? It sat proudly behind a glass wall, 7 pristine executive vehicles, each bearing the discreet logo of Hartley Energy Group. A reminder. A legacy. A second chance, earned. At the next foundation gala. This time, Travis wasn't on staff duty. He stood beside the donation table in a clean black tuxedo, checking inventory for the charity auction. Not because he had to, but because he'd asked to help. And across the ballroom, Lena Hartley watched him. He approached her slowly. This time, not nervous. Not desperate. Just, real. "Good evening, Lena." She smiled. "You look well, Travis." He gave a soft nod. "Still learning. Still growing." She tilted her head. "How are the new hires?" "We're recruiting from local youth centers now," he said. "Kids who never thought they'd belong in a place like ours. We train them from the ground up." "That was your idea?" Travis gave a small smile. "It was inspired by someone." Then his voice softened. "Lena. I know I've apologized before. But I want you to know this wasn't just about saving my job. You and your husband? You gave me a lens I never had. You didn't just show me who I was, you showed me who I could be. She studied him for a moment. Then she reached forward and gently fixed the slightly crooked name tag on his jacket. That version of you, she said softly. He's someone I'd do business with. Across the room, Gavin Hartley approached with a glass of champagne in one hand and a folder in the other. Final paperwork, he said, handing it to Travis. We're expanding the fleet. Travis blinked. You're trusting me with that? I'm trusting you to lead it, Gavin said, pausing. You've proven you don't just know how to sell. You know how to stand up. And with that, Gavin raised his glass slightly. To redemption. Travis raised his own, clinking softly. To humility. Later that evening. The ballroom dimmed as the last family left, and Travis helped a boy named Thomas into his wheelchair after a photo session. You know what, Mr. Travis? Thomas grinned up at him. You're pretty cool for a grown-up. Travis laughed, genuinely. Coming from you, he said, kneeling beside him, that's the best compliment I've had in a long time. He meant it. Because now he knew the truth, real worth isn't measured in commission, clothing, or class. It's measured by how you treat people, especially when you think no one important is watching. Have you ever been judged by how you look? Or misjudged someone else? Share your story. It could change someone's world.